Democrats have lied to the African American community.
Republicans are going to try to take away our welfare, our food stamps.
They're going to put you all back in chains.
And he's like black people best friends right about now. No, I'm not buying that.
You talk about George Floyd and having the foot on the neck, but the Democratic Party has had their foot on the neck of black people for over 200 years.
Every dollar that was given to BLM went to Democrat candidates.
But when one cop make a mistake, you want the whole nation and all to suffer.
They're taking that and trying to use the black community to rise against the police department.
I look at a lot of these things and all I see is the spirit of the Antichrist.
You could try to run a government without God, and you'll find out that it turns into a disaster.
Welcome to KLIM.news. I am Christy Lee, and today we are talking about systematic deception. It's a documentary inspired by the book, The Black History Bible, which was written by the film's producer, Lisa Babbage. Systematic deception brings to light a generation of manipulation. It features testimonials from black conservatives and evidence of intentional malfeasance within the federal government, resulting in coercion of the black vote and crumbling American dreams. It also exposes the farce of the BLM organization. The film's executive producers are Sam and Kevin Sorbo, and the director and cinematographer is Frank X. Panico, and he's my guest today. And he was born and raised in Queens, New York, and later moved to Hollywood, California, to pursue a career in the film industry, now living in Florida. And it founded the production company X's in the Sky Films. He's since won multiple awards for his work, working on lots of projects, but of course today we are talking about systematic deception. And so just go ahead and welcome in Frank X. Panico. And so first of all, just tell me about how this particular film came about and what motivated it.
Yes. Well, I just want to say that was a great intro. You said my name right, my company right. I have to give it to you. Very good. So it came to be, I got a call out of the blue. Like I was premiering my last film, Leaders for Life. And Sam and Kevin Sorbo showed up at the premiere, and it went really well. But this woman found out about the premiere and reached out to me out of the blue. This is like 7 months ago. And she said, she was searching for Christian documentary filmmakers. Her name is Linnell Babbage. And she said, I want to send my daughter to your screening. And, so she did for her birthday. So she sent Lisa Babbage to the screening. And then I found out that she wrote a book called The Black History Bible, and she spoke at our premiere, and it all started from there. And then I got a phone call after that from Linnell again and said, hey, I would like to do a film that exposes the lies from the Democrats that are spewed upon the black community to keep us in the party. And she also said it could be based on my daughter's book, The Black History Bible. So it all started from that phone call from some woman, that reached out to me and planted that seed. And then we worked hand in hand since then. She's a wonderful woman. She's become like, Linnell Babbage has become like my adopted mom, So it all started with that one phone call, and I had just finished a project, and I was open. And one thing about all my projects, I want to make sure that it's a message God would be happy with. My last one was about saving children and against abortion, and this one was about exposing lies, like Scripture says, take no part in unfruitful works of darkness, but expose them. And I'm doing that through this film, and hopefully conveying the messages of peace and harmony and how we shouldn't hate one another. Here I am, a white guy. Well, I'm Italian Puerto Rican, but I consider myself white, working with an entirely black staff and interviewees, and we get along great. They're welcoming to me. I'm welcoming to them. They're righteous, great Republican Christian people. And it puts to bed the farce that we can't get along with each other. So,
Now,
it's getting great reviews. People are really liking it.
Awesome. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that, but I do want to back up a little bit. It says that you originally moved to Hollywood, California to pursue filmmaking. So take me through how that evolved, where you head to Hollywood, but then now you're working predominantly on Christian filmmaking.
Right. Yeah. Well, long story short, born and raised in Queens, New York. I was the youngest of five. I had to move to Florida with my parents in like '78, and I lived in this little small town called Port St. Lucie. It was like you had to walk like 2 miles to the nearest 7-Eleven. So it was a big culture shock. So I lived there in Florida until I was around 24. Then I moved out to Los Angeles, originally to try and follow a career of modeling and acting. And then I fell into screenwriting while out there. I found out that was really my passion. And I've written like 6 screenplays since then. I haven't sold any, but they're very good. And then, so long story short, after like 15 years in Los Angeles, I felt God wanted me to come back to Florida to be near my elderly parents, but I was like fighting that. I had this attitude like, no, I'm not leaving LA until I'm successful as an actor or successful as a screenwriter. But it seems like the thing with God is like you could do things the easy way, the hard way. And he kind of like, I feel personally, he made things so difficult that I was like forced to move back to Florida with my parents. I mean, I lost the job I had with an executive vice president of Fox. I was assisting him, and I was literally selling my stuff on the sidewalk to get by. I sold my car, got a motorcycle, sold it, and it was just, and then God won in the end. And I was basically forced to move back. But it was a blessing because my parents passed away about 8 years ago. You know, they were elderly, and I got to spend time with them and have a wonderful relationship with them. And I'm glad I did. But long story short, I figured, well, no one's buying my screenplays, and I don't have like $2 million, you know, to do a feature film. So I started doing documentaries, and it's something that's easy. You don't need a cast, you know, you don't need a location scout. You just need a camera and people. And I started doing documentaries. So my first one was called Lambs Among Wolves. It kind of exposes the spiritual battle that's going on. Although mental illness is a medical thing, I think it's more so a spiritual thing. So it kind of touched base on that. And, you know, my first documentaries weren't that great. Just like any artist, like their first work is not that great. But here I am on like finishing my 9th one. And God has just blessed me a lot. So that's the way it kind of all evolved. And this last film, Systematic Deception, all the glory goes to God. I feel like this was like a gift from God to me. And it's not me, it's God that's doing all of this, you know.
And you have a lot of key figures in that, Lieutenant Colonel Alan West and many others. How were you able to round them up and get them interested in doing this film?
Yes, that's a good question. Well, like I said, it was just God and persistence. I reached out to Alan West, and he said, sure. He liked what I was talking about. I reached out to Alveda King. She said yes. She liked the message. I reached out to Kim Klasick, same thing. And then I reached out to C.L. Bryant. And then I reached out to Pierre Wilson, the head, one of the national directors of Blexit. And you know, after speaking to them and telling them what I'm about, and telling my last film was with Sam and Kevin Sorbo, and then they're helping me with this one, that always helps a lot. So I kind of just reached out to them, and they said yes. And then you just kind of make it happen. You know, oh, this one lives in Texas. I got to go to Texas with my 2 cameras and get this interview. Oh, this one lives in Georgia. I got to go to Georgia and do this interview. So it's kind of just happening. And then because I hooked up with Lisa Babbage, Linnell's mom, who wrote the Black History Bible, she basically got me like half of the interviewees, and there's like 18 or 20 in the film. And I was at the Faith and Freedom event, and Lisa got me a press pass, and I asked them to have this room, and I set up my cameras in a room, and Lisa just comes in with like 7 Black Republicans and say, here, go for the interview. I'm like one after the other. It was great. It's just that between Lisa and I, we rounded them all up. But I did go out and request the interviews with the high-profile people. And together, the film is just really, it's great because we have like these high-profile professional people, military people, evangelists. But you also have like a street evangelist. You have people that are running for office, people that are unknown, all Black people with different backgrounds, coming from different places, but they all are Christian and all realize that this nation is slipping away and we have to do something to stop it.
Is there anyone that you wanted to have involved that didn't pan out, or do you feel
Yeah.
like?
Yeah, well, I reached out to Larry Elder, and he was in the middle of his race, the election race, and kind of got an okay. He wanted to do it, but then I didn't really hear back. I guess he was just too busy. Larry Elder would have been great. I'm sure there's a couple other people I reached out to that couldn't do it, like Carol. I reached out to Carol Swain. She couldn't do it, and there was a few I reached out to that couldn't do it. But God took care of it all, and I'm just really happy with the film. So and I appreciate Colonel Allen West. He's awesome. I mean, he was so welcoming to me. Like, he invited me to his home to do the interview. I'm like, oh, awesome. I was like all nervous and stuff. And the first time you meet him, you just kind of just dropped it all. He's like, call me Allen. I was like, Colonel West. He's very cool, down to earth, righteous guy. And I wish him luck in his election. He would be great, a great governor of Texas. So Alveda King, same way, wonderful person, wonderful person. I met her in Georgia to do the interview. All great people. Kim Klasick, excellent. Kind of like on a spur of the moment thing, she said yes, and it all came together really well. Yeah.
Awesome. And how did you forge this relationship with Kevin Sorbo? I know he's been involved in other Christian films, and
Right.
how did that come about?
Right. Well, it's funny because, I don't know, over 4 or 5 years ago, I reached out to his wife, right? So what better way to get to the main guy, but through his wife? I mean, to speak honestly. But she's been just amazing. Her name is Sam Sorbo, and she learned about my pro-life film, Leaders for Life, and wanted to help. And she coached me through that, back and forth, helped editing, and it came out to be remarkable. It was just kind of meant to be. Like, when I reached out to Sam, and finally she agreed to be in the film as an interviewee and help me, coach me through the process. I'm like, well, great, I can come out there to you and we can film. She's like, oh, you don't have to. We're moving to Florida. So it was a God thing. They live literally 45 minutes from me right now. And I went to their house, same thing. I was all nervous meeting Kevin. And then all of a sudden, the second you shake his hand, it just all fell away. Totally righteous, down-to-earth guy. Wonderful, wonderful Christian people. And just having their name attached to my project helped me immensely, kind of like a status type thing. It's all perception, and Kevin Sorbo and Sam Sorbo are part of your film. He must be okay, almost, I don't know. It's just a weird thing. God works in wild ways. I'm just blessed to be part of their life, and we're friends, and they've helped me immensely. So, and I hope to help them too. They helped me with this film, and it's kind of all coming back, and we're all working together. We all realize that God's calling us to save our one nation under God. They're trying to turn it into something else, and we're all on the same page. So we all pull together and work together, and kind of not in an angry way, but a stern way, call out the lies and deceits that's going on in the world, the tyrannical government, the overreach. We're all losing our morals. It's like, it's almost like structural damage. It's almost like moral structural damage is happening in America, and that's leading to all the problems. But Sam and Kevin have been just a blessing. I actually just talked to Sam today. She helps me a lot. She helps me negotiate deals. She's like, Frank, they're taking advantage of you. Don't do this. And then she's become like my sister,
That's awesome.
They're wonderful people. Yeah.
One thing I did really like about the film is that it does weave Bible scripture throughout. And so I want to ask you about that. At what point, have you always been a Christian? Has that always been involved in your work, or how did that come about?
Yeah. Well, long story. Well, I'm Catholic, and I still am. And even though there's been attacks in the Catholic Church, all the scandals, the child abuse things, Satan gets into everything, whether it be a Catholic church, Episcopalian church, whatever, fire department, whatever. Satan will get in and try and destroy it. And that's what's happening with the Catholic Church. And I'm not very thrilled with our present Pope. we'll just leave it at that. But I pray for him. And there's a saying I like to use. It's like, you don't leave Jesus because of Judas. And that's how I feel. But I've always been a Catholic, like even, well, I could just look, the world already knows, but I was like living a lifestyle I wasn't really proud with right now. It's kind of like bombshell stuff. But I've been practicing abstinence for over 15 years. And unless I find a woman that I love and I'm attracted to, I plan on being single my entire life and continue to practice abstinence. But for 15 years, I lived, you know, in the gay lifestyle in Los Angeles. And even when I was doing that, going to bars and clubs, doing drugs, staying out all night to the next morning, I would still go to church, like Catholic church, like I would make it to Mass. And I kept receiving communion, asking for forgiveness, receiving communion. And it's just crazy. It's just a battle, but God has always been there. And what happens is, you start to love and respect God so much, and you get to a point where you don't want to disrespect him, I guess. So it kind of led me to a life of, like, you know, the Apostle Paul was single his whole life, and he has an immense amount of writing in the scripture. So just God has always been the one that led me through everything. And it seems like the more I'm focusing on that, the better things are getting. Like I'm breaking through certain barriers, like OAN aired my film, and I have interviews on Newsmax, and it's all because of God and kind of staying in his will. I'm a sinner, you know, but I'm trying my hardest, and that's what all that people could do, is just try their hardest. And I don't put down people that, you know, might be gay or whatever. In fact, I might have a better perspective because I live that way. So, you know, if anybody comes down on me calling me anti-gay or whatever, I'll say, look, you don't know who you're talking to.
You're like, I have a little bit of insight on this. But again, I mean, that's a good way to approach it. There's no condemnation for those that love Christ. And you're just following your own convictions, and that's great. So this film actually gives a lot of examples of racism from ways that we're being told is the opposite of. It's just this like cognitive dissonance that our whole society is going through, and it even exposes a lot of times that President Biden was just flagrantly racist. Do you think that people are starting to notice this, are starting to realize they were deceived? What do you think?
Yes. For instance, at the screening, we had one premiere screening in Florida, and just so you know, I want to throw it out there. We're going to have another Atlanta film premiere on the 30th, and you could find out information on our website, Leaders for Life, systematicdeceptionmovie.com. And one could also see the film for a short time there for a $10 donation. But you can also learn about our Atlanta screening. It's going to be awesome. And yeah, well, my point was, we had a first screening in Orlando, and it was like, you know, 80% black people there and just me, and it was great because I felt like now I know how they felt being minority all the time. But the point I'm making is, I heard like gasps and ahs from the audience, like they didn't know certain things, like they didn't know that Biden had said, you know, they're going to put you all back in chains. You know, they didn't know that he said white supremacy is the greatest threat to our nation. You know, they almost like were laughing at this stuff, and they didn't know that Hillary Clinton accepted an award from Planned Parenthood, the Margaret Sanger Award, and Hillary Clinton said, I admire Margaret Sanger deeply. Like, she admires this person who was in charge of heading up killing innocent children. This is what the Democrats are about. So
not only that, but it's finally come out, and even Planned Parenthood, to my understanding, has condemned their founder for being openly racist and a eugenicist. Yeah, that's like not even a secret anymore.
Right. But that's the thing. Like, the Democrats, it's really it's sad as hell. Like okay, here's the thing. Abortion and division are tactics of the evil one. Abortion and division are tactics that the Democratic Party is embracing. It's crazy, and I don't know how anybody could vote that way. Look, all of Republicans, all Democrats. You can't just paint everybody with a broad brush. But for instance, like as far as the Democrats in the House and the Senate, like almost all of them fully support abortion, whereas all of the Republicans don't. So there is a certain party that's more for life than death.
And I was going to push back on you a little bit on this subject. The film is very much exposing Democrats and condemning Democrats and saying Democrats are the ones that have deceived the people. But you talk about division. Do you think that it's a little bit difficult to talk about division and then paint that line of Democrats versus Republicans? I mean, certainly there's Republicans that have not been standing for morals, standing for Christian values. So is there a danger in kind of falling into the trap of painting it Democrats versus Republicans?
Right, because they would say, oh, you want unity, but yet you're coming out against the Democrats. Yeah. Well, in the film, I also do bring up, as you know, rhinos, certain people that are dangerous to the party. It's like having them in charge. It's like having a war, but, you know, the enemy's right there with you on your same side. So, yeah, I definitely know what you're saying. But it all comes back to take no part in unfruitful works of darkness, but expose them. So I feel like I'm just exposing what's happening. And but I hear what you're saying, definitely. You know, I don't really, of course, my wish is that all Democrats and liberals would rush to see this film. But the reality is they're going to find out through watching trailers and stuff, they're not going to want to. You know, I have people that have texted me and emailed me and said, oh, I got to have my family members see this film. They're just out of control. But it's almost like, and I understand like marketing is very important. Your audience is very important. But half the nation feels like I do. So I'm just like, look, this is the audience I'm going for. And hopefully some Democrats and liberals will see the film too. Like, you know, for instance, Dinesh D'Souza, I mean, he's very accomplished. But do you think he expected Democrats to be rushing to see his film? No. So I'm catering in a way, preaching to the choir. But hopefully some Democrats and liberals will sneak in. Maybe they'll walk into a theater by mistake and sit down and start watching the film or something. So, but I definitely see what you're saying. You could say, well, if you want unity, then why are you bashing these Republicans? And it's almost like, you know, why did Jesus call the Pharisees, you know, whitewashed tombs that are dying inside and full of filth and dirt? On the outside, you look nice. Why did John the Baptist call people a brood of vipers? You know, so we're allowed to call out things like, and that's what I'm doing. But I do understand that it looks like, you know, I'm saying, oh, you want unity, but here you are bashing the Democrats. Well, they kill babies, so that's my reason.
Got it. So I think you've already talked about why this film is so important. Do you feel, and I think I've kind of asked this already, but do you feel like more and more people are waking up, especially in the Black community?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, and I didn't speak of that. I do, absolutely. Yes, there's a huge red wave coming. And there are so many things that are just absolutely on its face not true, and they're all being exposed. It's like this grand exposure. And yes, there's a huge portion of the Black community that have the ideals of Republicans and conservatives, and they are learning that, and they are switching, and they are leaving the party. You know, like in my film, you know, Laverne. There's so many in my film. Laverne Spicer, who's running in here in Florida, says, you know, why are you loyal to somebody that's not loyal to you? You know, the Democrats, they're the ones that started the KKK. They're the ones that put Jim Crow into effect. You know, like why it's great because everyone in the film is African or is Black. And it's kind of like the eyes of America through the Black community, who is a vital part of the fabric of America. And yeah, so they are waking up very much. And I feel that this this film, it goes for the jugular of the Democratic Party. It really does, and it is what it is. So I feel like of course, nobody knows exactly what God's saying, but I feel like He's saying, do whatever it takes to stop this. Do whatever it takes to stop this. They're stealing my one nation under a God and turning it into something else, something tyrannical, something that it's not supposed to be, where you don't have they're burning churches, breaking down statues of the Virgin Mary, you name it. They're just trying to. There's a spiritual warfare going on, and there are people that want to take God out of everything, and they want to take God out of the United States and build it in a new form that has nothing to do with God. Like Vigano wrote a letter to Trump. Vigano wrote a letter to Trump a while ago, when Trump was in office, warning him of this. There are, just like you have people against you and want you out, there are people that want to ruin our world and take God out of it and rebuild it in a fashion that has nothing to do with God. And we have to all rise up and fight that. So I feel like filmmaking is my way of doing it.
Yeah.
We all have ways and different things. You can, write letters to your congressman. You can even just, post things. You can stand outside abortion clinic and pray. Everyone could do something. So, and like I said, it's not me. It's God that's doing anything that's good that comes from this. All the glory has to go to God, Jesus, and Holy Spirit.
Yeah, that's ultimately what it comes down to. And like you said, grassroots efforts, everyone doing their part. Yes,
absolutely. But yeah, that's kind of it. And then like I said, there's going to be a screening of Systematic Deception in Georgia on the 30th. And if someone wants to learn more or see the film for a $10 donation, it'll be up for a little while. They can go to systematicdeceptionmovie.com. And I would just like to thank everybody involved in the film, especially Lisa Babbage, who wrote that awesome book, The Black History Bible, Linnell Babbage, the mother, everyone involved in the film, and Kevin and Sam Sorbo. And that's about it. It's nice to have a minute to talk to you, because so many interviews, it's like you got 4 minutes, bam, bam, bam.
Yeah, it gives us a little bit more time. All right, well, if folks want to see that, go to systematicdeceptionmovie.com, donate, support the projects, and do your part. Everyone's got to do their part. Thank you so much for coming on, Frank Panico. I really appreciate it.
It was my pleasure. Thank you for having me.